Just a couple weeks ago at Config, Figma announced this new dev mode. Today we're going to be jumping into that dev mode, taking a look at it and trying to answer what is it and why is it a big deal. So we're going to be looking at it with a test engineer, product manager, and a developer to get their takes on what they think of this new dev mode. Hey, my name's Jeremy. I'm a product designer here at Crema, and I've been using Figma for quite a while now, and I'm really excited about this new dev mode. I think it's going to bring a lot of new features in for people on my team. As a designer, there's a lot of things in dev mode that are super helpful. This new dev mode is going to help them to jump in and understand what I'm working on and what I'm building a lot better than Figma has ever done it before. So it's always been powerful for design, but this is actually really going to activate it for all the other crafts on our team as well, which I'm really excited for. So let's jump into what dev mode looks like now. We used to have inspect inside of Figma. It gave a really high level view from the inspect panel, but it didn't go into details and it didn't have a lot of built-in features. It was really just to kind of check out what we had built, and that's kind of where it stopped. With this new dev mode, we can really dive in and get a lot more information and see a lot more contextual information about the designs that we never had been able to see before. If we activate dev mode here in the top right, we've changed into the kind of this green mode that helps us know that we're in dev mode. And I'm actually going to mark this with this new tag called mark as ready for dev. So I would do this as a designer to mark this ready for dev. And that would help the developer, the product manager, the test engineer that know that this is something that is ready, that I'm done with it, and that they're able to check it out. And when I mark that as ready for dev, it actually drops it into this dev mode in kind of a unique way. We get just the pages that show something as ready for dev. We get the sections and the frames that are marked as ready for dev, all really simply listed out on the side panel. We also get these layers just showing what we have selected. And then on the right side, we still have the inspect panel that used to be there, but there's a lot of new things added that we're going to check out as we talk with each craft member. So let's go ahead and dive in and start saying what everybody thinks. Let's go ahead and jump into dev mode here. So on the pages, we've just got it simplified to the pages that have something that is marked as ready for dev. Let's go ahead and mark both of these sections here as ready for dev. You can see when I do that, they appear in the left side. And so it kind of keeps our information simplified down to just what's ready for dev, down to the section and also the frame. I can arrow key through these frames to be able to easily look through them. And also when I'm selected on a specific frame, it just gives me the layers that apply to that screen or that frame, so that it keeps things a little focused in on that as well.
Yeah, that is super useful. It keeps things pretty focused for me, especially when writing my test cases. It's everything that I need to see is right here.
On the other side here, we've got all the colors. Those are simplified down. All of our assets are accessible and easily downloadable, lots of different file types that we can download those in. And even as we click down into the layers here, you can see like these icons are simplified down, so it's not showing you the kind of the root object, it's just keeping it as the component, and you don't accidentally click too far in. You can kind of be focused in on just the things that you need to grab out of the file.
Oh, totally. I can see how that is very useful. Can we see what this looks like for when a design is approved? So it's not ready for dev anymore. Everybody's got it's done. What does that look like? Does it change anything?
Yeah, so that's actually something I'm hoping that in the future they'll add some more of these tags.
Yes.
Right now it's just this ready for dev tag. So if I remove that ready status, you can see it comes out of dev mode. We can still see it, but it's not kind of easily accessible in the side panel.
Yeah.
I'd really love to see more of those tags in the future. So that
I would too, especially if we're doing more collaboration and you have your test engineers or even your product managers in here, having a dedicated tag for us to see ready for test review or design review for testers. I think that would be useful.
Where do you see yourself kind of jumping in traditionally on that kind of scale from designers are starting to finish things up, developers are about to get into it, maybe it's not quite ready for dev. How do you like to be involved, and where do you see yourself jumping in?
This is very aligned up with like test-driven development for me, because I'm looking at these designs and thinking about what the end user is going to do. I'm thinking about what the acceptance criteria is and finding the gaps where we may not have covered a certain user experience, and getting into these designs ahead of time. I'm able to write tests ahead of time and review those with the developers. And sometimes we actually find some unusual behavior where we didn't actually think that the user might do something on a certain page, and we need to like prevent some behavior. So it's super helpful to look at ahead of time.
Yeah, that's cool. And yeah, we've talked about Figma with branching and merging as well, and being able to allow test engineers to jump into those files. And so maybe even in that flow, we could figure out a pathway to kind of refine some of these things.
Yes, we're totally using it like that, but it would be cool if Figma had some more dedicated stuff for testers.
Yeah, that'd be great. Dev mode is building on inspect. So they used to have that in Figma. That was around for a long time, but as developers, you sometimes had issues with that. It just wasn't all the information that you might have wanted. So they really kind of built on that idea of inspect and added a lot of features. So if I click on this specific section here, you can kind of see general understanding. So any of the prototyping that I have connected to this, let me go into a specific frame too. We get a lot more when we click on a frame or a screen. We can see changes that have been made, dev resources, and link anything we need to link specifically to this frame or specifically to a section. The kind of the browser style, border padding, and then generating all sorts of kind of Figma code for a bunch of these things, and even showing the styles that are getting used and all the assets which you can easily download. So a lot of added things there.
It's so much cleaner now, and there's such a neat ability to be able to switch the units you're using. I know that if you hit the little config guide, you can change the unit scale, which is huge. So like if we're using a 16 base system or a 14 base system for our font size, you don't have to change what you're doing for me to get the unit scale that I need to pull that into the code, which is huge. And that just allows us to centralize a lot more of what we're building, because you can continue to design, but I can then interpret it in the way that I need for what I'm going to be doing next, which is just a really massive change. I also know the Figma team had their a special plugin that they had built for inspecting and generating code, and it had TypeScript support and being able to generate stuff for React and for Vue and all this stuff. So I was looking at their repo where they do all their plugin repo, and it was really neat to see how quickly you can build your own plugins to generate custom stuff. Very, very cool.
It sounds like it is huge to be able to have plugins that are kind of specifically tailored to your needs. We've had, as designers, plugins for all sorts of things forever, but to be able to see plugins that really think about dev mode, the possibilities of dev mode, and really customize and build for that seem like it could be really huge for developers.
I'm curious too, for you, I know that there's going to be a new discussion now because property is translating over as like a one-to-one, where you are designing something and you have a property, you call a button disabled or whatever it might be, we can now pull that directly over into our components. When you're naming stuff, I have to imagine this is going to require a lot more of the integration between the crafts early in the process, so that we can get together and say, okay, these are the props, here's what we're calling things, this is the convention we're sticking to, so that it's less of like a lurch when that gets handed off to dev. Because a lot of times what we have to do is then go and actually recreate some of that logic through the props that we're going to use in our system. And this is an opportunity, I think, for teams to just align earlier in that process.
Well, and I think that's kind of the key here with Figma. What they're always trying to do is push the way that we as designers do things closer and closer to the way that you need to read it and the way that you as developers need to work with it, so that there's not this barrier of language and understanding and format that we're trying to fight through that becomes a huge issue as we're kind of passing things off. What I think they're hoping to achieve here more and more is, we as designers can think about UX, you as developers can think about implementation and all the sticky things that come in there, and this kind of crossover between that UX space of thinking and the implementation space of thinking can become a lot easier, and it doesn't have to become a step. It just becomes a thing that we do, that we pass off, and it makes it a lot easier. So yeah, if we need to have those conversations earlier and sync things up and make sure that we're naming things the same way, that's absolutely a huge key and benefit to how they're setting things up.
It's really neat to see how they're opening access to these areas too, like within dev resources, being able to now, they have a REST API behind that. And so me being able to push and pull information in there is really powerful, because not only can we link that up to other third-party systems we already use, but we could define our own service that we want to add, and being able to actually inform that information from something that might be specific to like the ecosystem that we're designing and building for, and have custom data flowing in here as a resource that might need to be updated from some third-party system that we use internally, right? And that might be something that we could now put all in one place and kind of keep top of mind for everybody. That and some of the new plugin architecture, I think, is really, really cool, just to see how extensible this is becoming.
Yeah, as a designer, I probably won't use this view a ton, but even just some of those little things to be able to see how it's going to help you as a developer is really cool, and I'm excited for that. To be able to work closer together and be able to sync up our working styles a lot more.
I'm curious how the version control is going to change, or if it's going to impact the way that you think as a designer. Like, developers live in version control. That's how we understand everything that we're doing, right?
Yeah.
If it doesn't go into incremental commits that ladder up into pull requests and so forth, it doesn't happen. So, or it shouldn't happen. So if you as a designer, I know that you versioned files, and I've seen, worked with y'all in the past where you've been able to increment designs, but it's more of like collections of pages. Is having more of an explicit version control now in Figma going to require some new thinking from you, or how are you going to use some of these systems?
We can pop open the compare changes here. Actually, let me go to another one. You can see branches that are in here, the autosave versions. Relying on autosave is a very common thing, but I think it is. We need to be more cognizant of the more ability you as developers have to read into how we're doing things and seeing our process, not just the final screen that just says, hey, here's a JPEG, build it. That would be a horrible way to do things now. But we need to think about, you can actually go back and see our version history really easily with this compare changes. So we need to be a lot better as designers at branching things and merging them back in if we're making these changes, or just trying a bunch of different things that can help keep this file cleaned up and keep it in this space of screens that are being reviewed, screens that are ready for dev, and other stuff. Just get it into a branch, and then when it's ready to be pulled back in, go ahead and merge it, which is the way that you guys do things. If we are making a really specific update, maybe we have some copy changes that we needed to make across the board, and we're just going to go ahead and make those changes and save, manually save to the version history. Go ahead and name that so that it's clear for you guys when you're looking at this version history of, oh, hey, they made this change, they've named that change, and I can really see, I don't just have to look at the side-by-side or the overlay, which is really helpful. I can actually see why they made that change, and they gave it a name. So I think we need to be a lot more carefully managing how we think about our version history, and that you as developers will need to be getting in there and looking at that and understanding how this was built and what might have changed since you last looked at it.
That's really neat. And I hope that developers have a little bit of empathy toward the designers who aren't as used to like that very structured way of working, like in that laddering up changes into these definable points in time and being able to then go back and compare those to other points in time. I hope that can be something where, again, more conversation can happen between crafts, because I think this will make everybody better, but it's also a cognitive lift for people who haven't lived in that world for a long time. And so it'll be interesting to see how even just we internally can embrace this and lean into that, maybe some of those tensions that just is going to require some different thinking and work.
Yeah, of course, yeah. So a really cool addition with this dev mode is the dev resources. And one of the reasons I think this is so great beyond just developers is the endless possibilities that the dev resources have. It's really easy to find, maybe a developer finds a library online for something that's hard for us to show in Figma.
Yeah.
Like drag and drop is a great example. It's really hard to prototype well in Figma and make it feel real. And sometimes it's just nice to be able to see what a working one looks like, and maybe there's a library out there that we can see. And now with this dev resources, we can, whatever that live library link is, we can just drop this in here and attach it to a section or a specific frame or screen. And then, of course, whether it's linking to Storybook, GitHub, and Jira, we can drop in those links directly. However, the Jira concept itself is even more powerful because of the Jira plugin, which I know you've played around with this already. How can you resist?
Yeah.
So with this, we can link a Jira ticket to either a full section or a specific screen, and be able to see all that inline. So let's go ahead and do that now.
Yeah.
And I think you have a couple tickets made for this.
Yeah, absolutely. So we can go ahead and start connecting some of these profile screens directly to the user stories that are available in Jira.
Cool. So we can go ahead and link that. Okay, let's link it directly to this one, to this whole section.
Okay.
Sweet. And so, we're bringing in everything from Jira itself with the descriptions that you've written, whoever might be assigned to it, the priority that you're setting, all those things, even down to commenting.
Yeah, no, this is fantastic to have everything in one space, especially as we're looking through our acceptance criteria side by side with the designs and making sure that everything is fitting the expectations of the feature. So it's great to have it all in one space to do that kind of cross-referencing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So we can add a comment in here. And that will actually, wow, that's awesome. Look at that. Come over to the Jira itself. And I think this is great as a designer, because we've been able to grab links from Figma, whether it's a prototype link or a section or a screen link, and drop those into Jira, so it's easier for you to find those. But when we're not spending a ton of our time in Jira, we're spending a lot more of our time in Figma. It's easy to kind of have this Figma mindset and just think Figma. So to be able for both of us to kind of speak each other's languages almost, I can see Jira inside of Figma, you can see the Figma stuff inside of Jira. I think that's really powerful for us to be kind of, level the playing field a little bit and speak the same language, but in the space that we feel more comfortable.
Yeah, absolutely. And it kind of breaks down that barrier of what is the source of truth. Is it Figma or is it Jira? And in this scenario, it can be both because everything is in one spot.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, so we've connected one to a section here, but you often write tickets for maybe a specific screen, right?
Yeah.
So we can do that on a screen by screen basis as well. Let's see with this one, I think, explore page here. So, and same thing comes up for the specific screen, since we want to kind of be picky about this screen and its specific design details. We can even go down to that level and link it to that screen itself, which is really awesome.
Yeah, I like the different options here, especially whenever we think about prototypes and having designed interactions. Sometimes when we do designed interactions, it might only be available on certain screens. So it's nice to be able to link directly to specific screens in the Figma file so that we can open it in prototype mode and start clicking around to see those different interactions that are prototyped out.
That was something I was thinking about with another one of the designers is inside of these dev resources here. Yeah, just being able to like grab a prototype link of the specific flow. Maybe it's coming from somewhere else and then it leads into this, and so it can be confusing for especially viewers to know which prototype link they're supposed to be using. And we can actually grab those prototype links from inside of Figma, drop them into the dev resources, and connect it to this specific screen or section kind of user flow, and make it easier for everybody to find those relevant prototypes and know where they're supposed to be looking.
Yeah.
So that can really become a source of truth inside of Figma of where to look for all the relevant things. Such a simple thing, being able to drop in links. That's a really powerful space, I think.
Absolutely, especially when it comes to animations, because some of those things are hard to prototype out in Figma, and it's equally as difficult to explain it in written format in a Jira ticket.
Yeah.
So being able to leverage the dev resources to have inspiration links or links to libraries is going to be really effective for us to be able to keep track of what this feature is actually supposed to do.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited to play with this more and get working into it.
Yeah, me as well.
Thanks for watching the video today. Let us know what you think about this new dev mode in the comments down below. If you liked the video, give us a thumbs up, and of course, subscribe to the channel so you can learn more about future Figma things and all sorts of other product information in the future. And we'll see you next time.